Have you ever felt something strange when the doorbell rings unexpectedly? A sudden tension in your chest, a tightening of your shoulders, or a quiet yet firm voice inside saying, "I don't want this right now." The sound of the bell signals that someone is outside, waiting to be let in, perhaps hoping to connect, to chat, to share something. But instead of feeling excitement or joy, you feel an immediate discomfort, a resistance. That doesn't quite make sense to you at first. After all, you're not unfriendly, you're not angry, and you certainly don't hate people. So why does the idea of someone stepping into your space make you feel like your energy is being threatened? This discomfort is more common than most people admit. And if you've ever felt this way, take a deep breath. You're not broken, rude, or antisocial. You're not cold or detached. In fact, this reaction could be a sign of something profoundly healthy and essential. A deep relationship with your inner world, a need for solitude, and the quiet wisdom of your soul speaking up in its own way. In this series, we're going to talk about something rarely discussed, yet deeply human, the subtle, intimate, and often misunderstood discomfort that arises when someone tries to enter your personal space. We'll look at what Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, had to say about this. His insights offer not just understanding but healing for those of us who have long thought something was wrong with us simply because we longed to be alone. Let's begin with something simple yet powerful. You are not alone in this feeling. Many people experience it. That anxious twist in your gut, the rapid search for an excuse not to answer the door, the guilt that follows when you cancel plans just to stay in your own company. These are not signs of social failure. They are signs of a sensitive soul trying to protect itself in a world that doesn't always value quiet, solitude, or personal space. So let's ask a deeper question. Why does this happen? Why do some people thrive in crowds, in conversations, in the bustle of visitors, while others feel drained just thinking about having company over? The answer begins with Jung's fundamental insight into human personality, the distinction between introversion and extroversion. But unlike the simplistic definitions we often hear today, Jung's understanding went far beyond social behavior. He wasn't talking about being shy or outgoing. He was describing how your psychic energy, your vital life force, moves and replenishes itself. According to Jung, the extrovert draws energy from the outer world, from people, interaction, noise, stimulation. They feel alive when surrounded by others. In contrast, the introvert draws energy from within, from silence, solitude, reflection. This isn't about social ability. It's about the flow of inner energy. The introvert is not necessarily quiet or antisocial. They can be warm, articulate, even funny, but their energy is like a delicate current, easily disturbed, quickly depleted, and slowly replenished. For the introverted soul, every social interaction, especially one that is unplanned, requires effort. It calls forth the persona, the social mask Jung spoke of. The persona helps us navigate the world. It lets us function in society, fulfill roles, connect with others. But here's the thing. Wearing the persona costs energy. It is a performance, even if a well-meaning one. And when someone enters your home, especially unexpectedly, something within you recoils. It's not the person. It's what the person's presence demands. You must shift from inward stillness to outward engagement. You must find your polite smile, your conversational rhythm, your small talk toolkit. Even if you like the person, even if you're glad they care, it still feels like a disruption. Because it is a disruption. You are being called out of your inner world into the outer world, and for some people, that shift is exhausting. Jung emphasized that the home, for the introverted person, is more than just a place to eat, sleep, and store things. It is a sacred space, a sanctuary. It is where the psyche finds balance. Your home, in this sense, is a symbolic container for your soul. The walls protect more than just your belongings. They protect your mental clarity, your emotional equilibrium, your spiritual rhythm. That's why it feels so uncomfortable when someone steps into that space. It's not about the visitor's intentions. It's about the energetic intrusion. When someone enters, they don't just bring their body, they bring their energy, their moods, their unsaid emotions, their needs. If you're especially sensitive, you feel all of that, even unconsciously. You pick up on the subtlest vibrations. The silence changes. The atmosphere shifts. The space you use to recharge begins to hum with a foreign rhythm. You're not rude for disliking that. You're attuned. Jung would say that this attunement is not a flaw, but a gift. It's a sign that your psyche is active, alive, deeply connected to its environment. But it also means you must protect yourself more intentionally than others. While some people can shake off tension with a laugh or forget stress with noise, your soul needs quiet to heal. And when you open your door to a visitor, you're not just letting in another human being, you're opening the door to external energy with all its complexities. At times you might wonder, why do I feel so tired after a visit, even if it went well? Why does my mind spiral afterward? Why do I need to recover from something as simple as a coffee chat? The answer is this: your psychic energy has been spent. Jung described this movement of energy as essential to mental balance. If you're an introvert, too much outer stimulation drains your reserves. And when those reserves are low, even small interactions feel heavy. Like trying to lift a suitcase with a broken handle. It's not just inconvenient, it hurts. So what do? You begin by listening. You honor that quiet voice inside that says, I need space. You stop forcing yourself to open the door just because it's what polite people do. You learn that your energy matters. Your boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred. Jung taught that individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, begins with this kind of inner honesty. It's not about rebelling or rejecting others. It's about recognizing the needs of your soul and having the courage to respond to them. And if you've ever felt guilty for not wanting company, for needing solitude, for avoiding visits, then this is your moment of liberation. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are a soul learning to listen to itself. Imagine this. Someone steps into your living room. You smile warmly. You offer them tea or coffee. You exchange polite words, maybe even a few genuine laughs. On the surface, everything seems fine. You're doing what's expected. You're being kind, present, accommodating. But inside, something is happening. A quiet unease begins to rise. You feel a strange tension in your body. Your breathing shortens. You become hyper-aware of your posture. The dishes in the sink, the lighting, the silence between sentences. You start calculating, how long will this last? When will I get my space back? Why do I feel like I'm performing in my own home? This experience, familiar to many introverted or sensitive individuals, is a perfect example of what Carl Jung called the persona in action. The persona is the social mask we wear to function in society. It's not fake, at least not in a malicious sense. It's a necessary part of life. The persona helps us adapt, interact, collaborate, and relate. It smooths the edges between people. But here's the problem. The persona is not the whole of who you are. It's a fragment, often the most socially acceptable, polished, filtered version of your deeper self. Jung explained that every person has a true inner essence, what he called the self, and that between the self and the outer world stands the persona. The self is your totality, light and shadow, past and potential, consciousness and unconsciousness. The persona is the mask you wear to make this vast, complex being fit into the world. The danger isn't in having a persona. We all need one. The danger is in mistaking the persona for the real you. And more so, in feeling forced to wear the persona even in your sacred inner spaces. Your home, ideally, should be the place where the persona can come off. Where the mask is gently set aside. Where you are no longer managing impressions or performing expectations. In the quiet corners of your space, you can let your soul breathe. You can wear pajamas, sit in silence, cry if needed, or simply exist without explanation. But what happens when someone enters that space? Suddenly, you must put the mask back on. Not because the person is bad, but because society has trained you to present yourself in a certain way. You may feel the need to tidy up, offer refreshments, make conversation, avoid awkward silences, be gracious. You monitor yourself. You become two people, the host and the inner self, who is quietly waiting for it to be over. This creates what Jung might call a split in the psyche, separation between who you are and who you're pretending to be. The longer this split goes unnoticed, the more drained, resentful, or anxious you feel after social interactions. This is psychic exhaustion, and it often goes unacknowledged because on the surface, everything went well. But let's be honest, isn't it exhausting to perform even when you're home? For some, this exhaustion becomes chronic. They host guests, attend gatherings, smile through discomfort, all while their soul slowly starves for silence, authenticity, and rest. And yet, they feel guilty for not wanting to be social. They internalize the false belief that needing solitude is selfish, that turning down visitors is rude, that quietness is weakness. Jung would passionately disagree. He believed that the soul cries out. When we deny our deeper needs in order to maintain appearances, the more we live in our persona, the more distant we become from our real self. And when the soul is silenced long enough, it sends signals through fatigue, irritability, disconnection, even depression. These are not just emotional glitches. They are messages. Your inner being is telling you, this performance is hurting me. Please let me be real. One of Jung's most powerful ideas was that healing begins the moment we reclaim our authenticity. That means learning to say no, not just to others, but to the false image we've been maintaining for their comfort. It means being okay with disappointing others sometimes. If it means being true to yourself, it means recognizing that your well-being is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And yes, that includes your right to say, not today when someone wants to visit. Not because you're antisocial, but because you're learning to honor your limits. Here's a thought that might help. Every time you wear the persona, when you don't want to, every time you say yes when your heart says no, every time you host a guest while your inner world is begging for silence, you are subtly abandoning yourself. That sounds harsh, but it's true. Self-abandonment happens not just in big betrayals, but in the small moments we ignore our own boundaries to meet expectations. But the good news is this. Every time you listen to your discomfort, every time you close the door and choose solitude over performance, you are taking a step toward individuation. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong journey of becoming your true self. It is the process of integrating all the hidden parts of your personality, your shadow, your potential, your inner wisdom, and learning to live in alignment with your deepest truths. And that process doesn't happen at parties. It happens in solitude, in reflection, in silence. It happens when you sit alone in your room and feel the strange relief of not having to perform. When you stare out the window and your thoughts finally slow down. When your shoulders drop and you no longer feel like you're on. That's the beginning of individuation. That's your soul breathing again. But to live like this takes courage. We live in a world that celebrates visibility, sociability, availability. You are praised for being responsive, entertaining, involved. Few people will congratulate you for choosing a quiet night alone. Fewer still will understand why you need to say no to a friend's visit, just because you don't feel up to it. But Jung's work offers a radical reframe. Solitude is not a lack of something. It is the presence of your soul. You're not shutting people out. You're shutting noise out. You're not avoiding relationships. You're building the most important one, the one with yourself. And when you do that, something beautiful happens. Over time, you become more grounded, more whole. You no longer feel the need to explain your solitude. You no longer feel guilty for preferring your own company. You begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. And when you do choose to engage with others, it's not from duty, but from authenticity. Not from politeness, but from presence. So the next time you feel that twinge of guilt for not opening the door, remember this. The persona is necessary, but it is not your home. Your soul is, and you have every right to protect it. Let's say the visit begins. You open the door with a smile, perhaps forced, perhaps half genuine. You lead them in, offer something to drink, and sit down. The conversation begins and everything seems fine. But slowly you begin to feel strange. Not always intensely, sometimes it's subtle, like a low hum under your skin. A flicker of irritation, a sense of unease, A strange pressure building inside, even if you can't quite explain why. It could be something as simple as the way they talk, the tone of their voice, a comment they make, a story they tell, and suddenly something shifts in you. Maybe you feel your chest tighten. Maybe you feel the urge to end the conversation. Maybe you even begin to silently judge them, or worse, yourself for feeling this way. But what's actually happening? According to Carl Jung, it's very possible that the visitor, without intending to, is activating your shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is one of the most important, powerful, and misunderstood concepts. The shadow is the part of ourselves we have repressed, denied, or disowned. It's made up of all the traits, feelings, desires, and memories that didn't fit into the person we were expected to be. Not just our bad traits like anger, selfishness, envy, but even strengths and qualities that we were told were unacceptable. Confidence, boldness, deep sadness, wildness, vulnerability. Over time, these parts of us are pushed down into the unconscious. We forget them, but they don't disappear. They live in the shadow, shaping our thoughts, feelings, relationships, and reactions in subtle, invisible ways. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Now here's the key point. The shadow is not dormant. It's waiting. And it's often triggered by others, especially when they step into our personal space. When someone enters your home, they don't just bring their stories and intentions. They bring energy. They bring presence. And sometimes that presence touches something deep inside you, something you haven't fully seen in yourself. This is why a visit can feel so inexplicably uncomfortable. You're not just making small talk. You're being confronted, without even realizing it, by the unintegrated parts of your psyche. The shadow is stirring. Let's look at a few examples. A guest talks loudly and dominates the conversation. You feel irritated. Why? Maybe your shadow holds the part of you that longs to speak freely, without apology, but was always told to be quiet or agreeable. That part is being stirred by the visitor's presence. A visitor is emotionally needy or overly affectionate. You feel smothered. Why? Perhaps your shadow contains a deep vulnerability, a part of you that once depended on someone and got hurt. Now that unresolved pain is being triggered. A friend makes an offhand comment about how clean your home is, or isn't. You feel a surge of defensiveness or shame. Why? Maybe your shadow holds an old fear of judgment, or memories of not being good enough, of needing to be perfect to be loved. These emotional reactions don't come out of nowhere. The presence of another person can act like a mirror reflecting not just who you are, but who you've buried. This is what makes certain social interactions so draining, not just because of the conversation itself, but because of what is being activated inside you. In Jungian terms, the home is a symbol of the psyche, the totality of your inner world, and each room within it represents a part of yourself. The bedroom, your intimacy, your emotional and physical vulnerability. The kitchen, your nourishment, creativity, and emotional sustenance. The living room, your persona, your social mask, the image you present. The basement, your unconscious, your forgotten memories. The attic, your intellect, ideals, and spiritual thoughts. The front door, your boundary, the line between what's you and what's other. So when someone crosses that front door, they aren't just stepping into a physical space. They're stepping into the symbolic space of your psyche. And if you're not ready for that, if you haven't yet made peace with certain parts of yourself, their presence can feel invasive, disorienting, and even emotionally unsafe. This is not your fault. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're responding to something real, an unconscious process unfolding in real time. Jung called this projection, when we unconsciously see in others the parts of ourselves we haven't fully accepted. Sometimes what irritates you about another person is a direct reflection of something unresolved within you. And that's why solitude is so sacred. When you're alone, you're not just avoiding noise. You're protecting your psychic integrity. You're keeping space for the parts of yourself that are still under construction. You're allowing the shadow to speak in whispers, not be shouted into awareness through social interactions you didn't consent to. In solitude, you can ask, what part of me did that visit stir? Why did I feel tension? What might I be carrying that I haven't fully processed? This is the gold within the shadow. Jung believed that the shadow doesn't just contain the darkness. It holds hidden potential, forgotten creativity, suppressed wisdom, strengths we've been too afraid to claim. When you take time alone after an interaction, you're not brooding. You're processing. You're integrating. You're taking responsibility for your psychic health in a way most people never do. But this requires boundaries. It requires saying no when your energy says no. It requires not forcing yourself to be nice when your soul is asking you to be still. And yes, this might mean being misunderstood. Some people won't get it. They'll see you as distant, private, maybe even cold. But remember this. The shadow is not interested in being understood by others. It's interested in being understood by you. Because once you begin to integrate it, once you listen to those uncomfortable stirrings and allow them to teach you, you become more whole. You start reacting less, projecting less, performing less. And suddenly, even social interactions become more bearable, because you're no longer using them to hide from yourself. You're meeting others from a place of inner truth. This is what Jung meant when he said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So the next time you feel discomfort rising during a visit, pause, breathe, and ask, what part of me is being touched right now? That question alone can begin the process of healing. By now you've seen that your discomfort with visits, your craving for solitude, and your sensitivity to your personal space are not character flaws. They are signals, signs of a deep inner process beginning to unfold, a process Carl Jung called individuation. But what does that really mean? To individuate is to become who you truly are, not the person, shaped by family expectations, cultural norms, or social roles. Not the version of you that smiles politely while feeling exhausted inside. Individuation is about shedding the false layers, the borrowed masks, the learned behaviors, and reconnecting with the authentic core of your being. And here's the surprising truth. For many people, this process begins with discomfort. You don't wake up one day and say, I think I'll become my truest self now. No, it begins more subtly, more painfully. You begin to feel irritated by things that used to seem normal. You grow tired of surface conversations. You can no longer endure the emotional cost of people-pleasing. You start to notice how certain social settings drain you, how certain people trigger anxiety or numbness. You begin to feel an urgent need to withdraw. This is not regression. It is not social failure. It is a calling from within. In Jungian terms, this calling is represented by one of the most ancient and powerful archetypes in the collective unconscious, the hermit. You've seen him before, even if only symbolically. The old figure with a long beard, cloaked in silence, holding a lantern in the dark. The hermit doesn't live in isolation because he hates the world. He lives apart because he's following a deeper light, his inner truth. The hermit symbolizes the part of you that yearns for quiet, for reflection, for depth. Not because you're weak or afraid, but because you are ready. Ready to stop living according to others' expectations. Ready to hear your own voice again. Ready to return to yourself. And this doesn't happen in crowds. It doesn't happen when your energy is constantly being directed outward. It happens in solitude. Solitude, when consciously embraced, is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is a sense of loss, of disconnection from others. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice to reconnect with yourself. And for the person on the path of individuation, solitude is not just helpful, it's essential. This is why the discomfort with visits isn't just a social preference. It's an indicator that your soul is asking for space. It's saying, there's something within me that I need to attend to. I need stillness to hear it. I need distance to understand it. Most of us are never taught to value this. In fact, we're taught the opposite. That being social is a sign of health. That withdrawing is suspicious. That silence means something is wrong. But Jung knew better. He wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." To look inside, you need space. You need to protect your energy. You need moments of deliberate retreat. And when someone knocks at your door unexpectedly, even with good intentions, it can feel like they are interrupting something sacred. Because they are. They may not know it. You may not fully realize it, but their presence is colliding with your inner work, with your psychic rearrangement, with the quiet construction happening in the depths of your soul. And that construction cannot continue if you are constantly outward-facing. The deeper truths of the self cannot be found while you're performing, hosting, pleasing. They emerge in the quiet moments, when the outer world is muted and the inner world can finally speak. The hermit archetype teaches us this, that true transformation happens in the pause, not in the performance. And make no mistake, this is a brave path. It takes courage to decline invitations, to say no to gatherings, to disappoint others, to risk being seen as aloof or distant. It takes strength to listen to your inner rhythms when the world tells you to speed up, be seen, stay busy. But the hermit doesn't measure his worth by the opinions of others. He is guided by something older, deeper, his inner light. And here's something else Jung emphasized. The hermit does not withdraw forever. He retreats for a reason, to find clarity, to recover strength, to heal and remember who he truly is. Then in time, he re-emerges, not to return to the old roles, but to relate to the world in a new way, a more authentic way. That's the ultimate gift of solitude. Not isolation for its own sake, but solitude as a sacred phase in the process of becoming whole. And this process is different for everyone. For some, it lasts weeks. For others, years. There is no rule, no timeline. The only guidance is your inner compass. And the more you honor that compass, the stronger it becomes. You begin to trust yourself, to know what you need and when you need it, to walk away without guilt, to stay home without apology. At first, this might feel uncomfortable, maybe even painful, because we've been trained to put others first, to make ourselves available, to keep the door open. But in the language of the soul, saying no is not rejection, it's reclamation. Reclaiming your time, your space, your energy, your truth. Jung understood that individuation was not about becoming a better version of yourself, it was about becoming your true self. And the truth is often quiet. It doesn't shout. It whispers. And you can only hear it when the world quiets down. So if you feel the need to turn off your phone, cancel plans, say no to visits, even if you can't explain it to others, do it. That is the hermit calling. That is individuation in progress. You don't need to justify your solitude. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to apologize for listening to your soul. Because in doing so, you are doing what very few people dare to do. You are becoming yourself. You've walked with the shadow. You've met the hermit. You've come to understand that your discomfort with visits, your craving for solitude is not a flaw, it's a feature. A sign that something deeper is unfolding inside you. The slow, sacred process of individuation. But now, a new question arises. How do I live this truth in a world that keeps knocking? Because the visits will still come. The doorbell will still ring. Friends will still want your presence. Family will still ask you to show up. And at some point, you'll have to navigate both worlds. The outer world of relationships and expectations, and the inner world of truth, depth, and self-awareness. So how do you do that without betraying yourself? Carl Jung didn't believe in escaping the world. He believed in integration, in living from the center of your being, not as a performance but as a practice. And that requires something most of us were never taught: boundaries, rooted in self-awareness. Let's reframe what a boundary really is. A boundary is not a wall. It's a bridge. A wall says, you're not allowed in, ever. A bridge says, you can cross here, but only if you meet me in a way that honors my truth. Healthy boundaries don't cut you off from the world. They connect you to it in ways that don't cost you your soul. So when someone wants to visit, when a friend asks to drop by, when a social expectation appears, pause. Ask yourself, do I have the energy for this? Can I do this from a place of authenticity, not obligation? What is the honest response my body and spirit are giving me right now? And then, this is the hard part. Trust the answer. If your answer is no, you must learn to honor that without guilt. Not because you owe anyone an explanation, but because you owe yourself the truth. Here's something no one tells you. Saying no to others is often the first step in saying yes to yourself. When you say, "I'm not available today," you're not just protecting your time, you're protecting your alignment, your energy, your unfolding process. You're telling your soul, "I will not abandon you for the sake of being liked." That's a radical act of self-respect. But that doesn't mean you have to isolate forever. The goal isn't to become a ghost. The goal is to relate from a grounded place, where your yes is honest and your no is clean. That's what Jung meant when he said the individuated person does not become abnormal, but truly normal. Not normal in the sense of blending in, but normal in the sense of authentic, functioning, whole, unconflicted, real. And here's where the bridge comes in. Once you've done your inner work, once you've spent time with your shadow, honored the hermit, and reclaimed your space, you can begin to choose connection more consciously. You can say, "I'd love to see you, but I need advance notice. I'm available next week, not today. Let's meet in a way that works for both of us. Maybe not in my home, but at a park or for a walk." These aren't excuses. They're invitations to healthier dynamics. When you stop performing and start relating from truth, something beautiful happens. The right people stay. The ones who respect your space. The ones who don't take your boundaries personally. The ones who are also on a path of becoming. And the rest, they might fall away. Not because you're rejecting them, but because you're no longer available to play a role. That wasn't true to begin with. That's grief. But it's also grace. Because the people who remain, who walk across your bridge, will be the ones who meet you in the middle, not as a role, not as a host, not as a version of you shaped by politeness, but as you. And here's the deeper magic. The more you honor your solitude, the more whole you become. And the more whole you become, the more meaningful your connections will be. You won't need to fake small talk. You won't feel drained after interactions. You'll begin to attract relationships that feel nourishing, not depleting. That is what happens when the inner work becomes outer truth. So if you're wondering how to live from this place without isolating forever, consider this. Let solitude be your route, not your retreat. Use it to recalibrate. Let it inform your relationships, not replace them. Let it teach you what kind of connection your soul is hungry for. And above all, be patient. Individuation is not a race. It's a lifetime unfolding. And each phase, withdrawal, discomfort, silence, insight, boundary setting, is part of the path. You may go through periods where you need more space than usual. That's not regression. That's recalibration. You're aligning with a deeper rhythm, one that doesn't obey the social calendar but instead follows the lunar cycles of your soul. And over time, you'll find your own equilibrium. You'll host again, but from authenticity. You'll socialize again, but with discernment. You'll open the door, not out of duty, but from joy. Because by then, your home will no longer be a stage. It will be a sanctuary, a reflection of your inner state. And you will have become its guardian, not out of fear, but out of love. Jung believed that the greatest gift we can offer the world is a person who has become themselves, not a replica. Not a pleaser, not a product of social conditioning, but someone who has faced the shadow, honored the hermit, set the boundaries, and emerged real. And that is what you're doing. Your discomfort is a doorway. Your solitude is a seed. Your truth is the path. So walk it gently. And when the world knocks, answer only when your soul says yes.